When you think of some of the best fall colors, New England is one of the first places that comes to mind. The 6 states that make up this section of the United States are known for their stunning yellow, orange, and red trees that appear for a few short weeks during the fall season. It's always been a bucket list trip for me, so in October of 2022, I set out to explore some of New England's most beautiful places on a fall colors road trip with my dad. Here's all the information on our 3 short days, and be sure to stick around to the end as day 3 was my personal favorite. Also, if you're planning your own New England Fall Colors road trip, there's an ebook I made with maps and cost and other information that you can buy in the description. Let's jump into it and let me know what you think in the comments. Heading to New York.
Here we go, baby.
Red eye. Hopefully we sleep. Our Fall Colors road trip started by leaving Ontario for a direct flight to JFK. I don't sleep well on airplanes, so I got a couple hours of sleep, my dad got a little bit more, and eventually we arrived in New York. If you've never been to JFK before, it takes forever to get through the airport, but eventually we got to our rental car and started our road trip. Hey everybody, we just picked up our rental car from JFK, you remember Pops, and we're gonna do a 3-day New England Fall Colors road trip. Fall Colors weren't happening yet this far south, so we headed north towards Sleepy Hollow. Also, my dad and I always play this game where we try to turn on the other person's seat warmers without them knowing. Is your seat feeling a little warm?
Yes. I like it that way. It's 48 outside.
On our way towards the Berkshires, we decided to stop in Sleepy Hollow in Tarrytown. First stop on our trip, since it is the fall, we figured we should see Sleepy Hollow. More specifically in Sleepy Hollow, Washington Irving, the author's house, plus a few things in the downtown area. I didn't realize how much literary history was in this area of the country, and as I was researching this trip, I thought maybe I'll go back and do a literary road trip at some point in the future. Can't take any photos or videos on the tour. Cool spot if you're a fan of the literary history, but we're gonna go see a few more Sleepy Hollow things in the downtown area.
It's pretty funny. The Sleepy Hollow High School mascot is the horseman, and their sign says Horseman Pride.
We found with our visit to Sleepy Hollow and later to Salem that this type of Halloween tourism is very popular in the East Coast. This bridge in the cemetery is supposed to be like the one in the Washington Irving story. It's not an old bridge, but it was created to look like what it would have during his time. You're gonna fall off the bridge. We found the Headless Horseman. In case you're wondering, Sleepy Hollow gets busy in October. So we're gonna go see the statue in the church and then head on. They even got an inflatable Headless Horseman over there at the gas station. There's the statue right there. Pop says,
I expected something a little more realistic.
Ah, okay. There's even a tour group that just got let out here. That's how you can know there's a lot of people coming in October. And they call this the Headless Horseman Bridge, but the one we went to is way cooler. The Old Dutch Church of Sleepy Hollow was built in the late 1600s. It was featured prominently in the story of Sleepy Hollow, so it's a popular tourist attraction, and there was even a tour going on inside of the church while we were there. The Headless Horseman tethers his horse nightly among the graves in the churchyard, according to the legend.
I believe it.
The last major point of interest is the grave of Washington Irving. Sleepy Hollow is a fun little stop for a couple hours. Now we're heading on, see if we can find something to eat for lunch. In New England, fall colors usually start in the north in late September and then they head south over October. We were here in the middle of October, and so our goal was to continue to head north until we found them.
We've just entered Connecticut, our second state on this trip.
Alright, so this is already better than I could have ever imagined. It's never gonna look as good in photos and video, but I mean, look at this. We're not even anywhere near a peak area yet. We were making our way towards Highway 7, but we stopped in the town of Sherman to visit the American Pie Company. This place is loved for both their pies and their massive pot pie that was easy for both my dad and I to share. So they have an indoor dining area in there, but it's pretty small, but they have this picnic table right here with the fall colors, so you can see what we chose, and then look at this crazy spread we got.
Chicken pot pie, peach blueberry, peach raspberry, and of course, we always get salad.
Always healthy. Dive in and give it a try. It's supposed to be a famous chicken pot pie.
This chicken pot pie is one of my all-time faves, so I'm very excited. That's yummy. That's delicious. Wow. Great crust, very good.
For pie, they told us to get anything with peaches in it, and we got a raspberry peach pie, which was also incredible. It was a great welcome to New England for our road trip. We're heading to see the Bulls Creek covered bridge, hopefully one of many covered bridges on this trip. You guys know I love bridges, so of course we were going to seek out all of the covered bridges we possibly could on our drive. The current bridge here was built in 1842, and it's significant as it's one of the 3 surviving covered bridges in Connecticut. The bridge is 1 lane, so you have to wait for other traffic to pass if you want to drive through it, but be sure to walk through it and go down to the other side by the creek so you can get some great views of it. I had no idea the water would be rushing as good here. Look at those views. Fall colors, rushing water, and a covered bridge is basically as good as it gets. We continue on Highway 7, which is a great 2-lane road to drive during fall. 15 minutes later, we made it to our next stop. Next up, we're at Kent Falls State Park, and it's about a quarter mile to hike to the waterfall. You can actually see the waterfall from the parking lot. Kent Falls State Park has a fun little covered bridge that you can walk through and then a paved path all the way to the waterfall. This is a great wheelchair accessible trail along the drive. The falls here apparently drop 250 feet over a quarter of a mile. There wasn't much flow when we were there, so we just took them in from the viewing area and we didn't continue hiking back. It was still an incredible spot to see with probably about 60 feet of falls and beautiful fall colors all around. As we left the park, we continued to head north, and about 15 minutes later we were at our second covered bridge. Made it to covered bridge number 2, West Cornwall. Supposedly the first bridge was built here in 1762, but it was destroyed many times, and this modern one was built in the mid-1800s. It's one of the longest covered bridges we saw on our entire trip, and be sure to drive through it and see it from the other side. Entering Sheffield, Massachusetts.
That would be the 3rd state today.
We go through states quickly in the beginning of this video and then spend a lot of time in Vermont and New Hampshire later on. Our next stop of the day brought us to covered bridge number 3. If you want to come to this bridge, don't follow GPS because it took us down this dirt road, but you can clearly just park right off the highway and walk across, but we had an adventure to get here. This bridge used to be the oldest in Massachusetts until it was destroyed in a fire in 1994. It's not open to drive across, but you can walk across it. There's the parking lot right off the highway that we could have taken.
Apparently back in the 60s there was some monstrous triangular shaped object that was flying over the sky here. All kinds of people, in terms of including like a judge and police, saw it, and they kept fighting to say that they actually saw this, and then ultimately the governor said that we believe you, and became a historical fact.
Yep. Pops really wanted to come here, so does that mean that he's an alien? I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me of my visit to Roswell.
Heading on from there, we just drove through the small towns, took in the fall colors, and then stopped at one of the farm stands. I had read online that this was particularly worth stopping for because of their donuts. This is the fresh, warm apple cider donut from Taft Farms. Sugary, got a good crunch, not too greasy. Goes good with the fall colors we've seen today. It was becoming later in the day and we were starting to get a little loopy from our lack of sleep on the red eye, so we just had a couple more stops before calling it a day. My dad's a huge fan of Norman Rockwell, so he really wanted to stop and see the museum that was in Stockbridge. Luckily we got there about an hour before it closed, so we were able to spend a good amount of time just walking around and exploring. Norman Rockwell was a prolific American artist, and so it was amazing to be able to learn more about him and to see a lot of his work on display here. They had many of his famous paintings that I'm sure you've seen before, and an entire room dedicated to the covers he did for the Saturday Evening Post. Pops is doing an inception, looking at him, who's looking at her, who's looking at them. It's like a dad joke. This is the hotel that's in downtown Stockbridge that we're gonna see next.
If you love Norman Rockwell, you got to stop here. Some of the original paintings are here. The most famous ones are here. It's just incredible.
Pops grew up with his mom really enjoying it, so he was stoked to see the museum, and I had seen a lot of the paintings before as well. It's definitely fun. Leaving the museum, our last stop was about 5 minutes away at the Red Lion Inn. We wandered through the hotel a little bit, which was historic and really cool to see, and then we went down into the basement to the Lion's Den to get some dinner. Pops barely fits in the Lion's Den. This was actually a great spot for dinner as it had fun cocktails, good burgers, and live music. That's it for us tonight. We were heading to the hotel, end of day 1, exploring the fall colors of New England. Morning day 2, we're starting with a trip to Walmart since I forgot a memory card, and now we're heading north to get to Vermont. We stayed in the town of Lee, Massachusetts the previous night and then started making our way north to drive Route 100 through Vermont. I decided to stay this far south as I wanted to go to Mount Greylock before continuing on. This ended up being the right choice as it was one of the best places we saw for fall colors on our entire trip. Pops, look at this area we're at. I'm surprised this spot didn't have more visitors. It was one of the best places we saw for fall colors, and throughout the rest of the day we really started to run into the crowds. Maybe this drive's still flying under the radar though, as we didn't see any other cars the entire time we were here. Plus, getting to the summit is pretty cool as it is the tallest mountain in Massachusetts. The Appalachian Trail passes right over Mount Greylock. Pops and I made it to the summit of Mount Greylock. It was about a 2-minute walk from the car, highest point in Massachusetts. You can climb a spiral staircase to the top, but unfortunately it's not open today, so we don't get to do that, but I bet the views are pretty cool up there. Unfortunately, when we got to the summit, it was a little cloudy in most directions, so we only got one real view here. Wow, look at how it looks in the winter time. There's also a beautiful and historic lodge right at the summit that was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. It was getting ready to close for the season, but we were still able to poke our head in and look around. I bet this would be an awesome place to stay, especially if you're hiking the Appalachian Trail. Here's the distance from the south and north start and end points to the Appalachian Trail. Awesome spot to explore, cool old lodge you can stay at if you want to, but we are heading on to Vermont and to get some sticky buns. The best part about this is that the drive down was different than the drive up, so you got to continue to head north and see a different part of the mountain. This part was also covered in fall colors and we stopped a lot just to get out and see it. You guys, this Mount Greylock drive to the summit, this has been an easy highlight for the beginning of the trip. The colors are incredible. The way the trees go over the road, this is something you have to do. As we got off the mountain, the drive took us right by the Mount Williams Reservoir. There's Mount Greylock up in front of us, and we found this epic spot for a reflection. One tip about fall colors photography is look wherever there's smooth water, as it makes for an amazing reflection. We have made it into Vermont.
This is the epic part of this. Everything's been gorgeous, but Vermont is the place that we've been looking forward to.
What state number is it?
I think it's probably 5, 4?
4.
4?
That's why I pointed the camera at you. I didn't want your commentary. Anytime you research fall colors in New England, you'll see Route 100 through Vermont and the Kancamagus Highway always come up as recommended. We wanted to spend time with each of those, so we dedicated one day of our trip to each one. Our first stop in Vermont was something that came highly recommended to us, and that was the Sticky Fingers Bakery. Supposedly they have some of the best cinnamon rolls here. Unfortunately it's raining, so we have to eat in the car, but this is a pretty epic spot to eat at. There's a picnic table, and there's even some chairs overlooking the river. So we got the two most popular things. We got a cinnamon roll and we got Asiago cheese something.
Asiago cheese. Very nice.
Nice savory.
Yeah.
I can also say that I've already tried this and that it's very good. Sticky Fingers Bakery was a great stop to have breakfast and start our day in Vermont. Here's a few shots of the fall colors in this area as it was staggering even with the rain. We also downloaded the Gypsy Guide app and paid for the Route 100 trip. This was a fantastic way to learn about all the things that were around us while we were driving. We're headed into the famous Vermont Country Store. The Vermont Country Store has been one of the top stops on Route 100 for decades. It was opened in 1946 and over the years it has become a massive shop with all sorts of different things that you can purchase. It's still family owned and operated, and what I liked about it was that it had everything from Christmas decorations to local cheeses and maple syrups. If you're looking for something to take home as a souvenir, this is definitely the place to get it. That's an awesome store, well worth the stop, but it was a complete zoo. There was like 4 tour buses in there, so it was hard to kind of get around, and we didn't leave it at anything, but definitely worth checking out. There's also a small restaurant here that sells hamburgers, hot dogs, and ice cream. Continuing on again, we were surrounded by fall colors as we made our way north. That's one of the things that I'll never forget about this drive is that the fall was basically continuous the entire time we were here. On the way to our next stop, we saw this place called the Reservoir Pond, and how do you not stop and just take a ton of photos here? This is just a random pull-off on the side of the road, Route 100, Vermont, and that reflection. Luckily, this was only a 2-minute drive from the Green Mountain Sugar House, meaning that this spot also had some awesome views over the water. Both my dad and I looked for property in Vermont as we were just blown away by how beautiful this state was the entire time we were driving. This is our next stop, the Green Mountain Sugar House, to try some maple syrup and maybe even get a creamy. Of course, you have to stop for maple syrup when you're in Vermont, and this place has been here since the 1960s and has won many awards over the years. Look at the view outside of the shop. Wow. Plus, they sell creamies. This is a creamy, which is maple syrup and soft serve. Pops is trying to figure out how to ship like a gallon of maple syrup to himself, so I'm gonna come out here and enjoy it. First try. Maple syrup and ice cream, how can that be bad? What'd you think of your creamy?
It's good. It's not overpoweringly maple, but it's got a subtle maple flavor. It's nice.
You got a gallon of maple syrup shipped to your house?
I got 2 gallons shipped to my house. One of robust and one more middle.
After my dad bought enough maple syrup to last for a decade, we continued north on our drive. Our next stop brought us to the President Calvin Coolidge State Historic Site. President Coolidge sure knows how to pick 'em. This is the view from his home. This is a museum and the grounds for President Calvin Coolidge's house. You can go take a tour, just explore a little bit, which is what we're gonna do. It is a national holiday, so I guess the museum's closed, so we're just walking around the grounds a little bit. I'm not sure what's in the museum, but the grounds are beautiful to walk around, especially in the fall. The highlight though is all of the historic buildings that are still located on the central street. There's President Calvin Coolidge's birthplace right there. Next to his birthplace is a church, and then across from that is the house that he lived in and the Plymouth Cheese Company. Have you ever seen a more amazing cheese shop than this building with the fall colors behind it? Founded in 1890 by the Coolidge family. According to the person working at the cheese company, it's the oldest cheddar in America, and they still use the recipe from the 1890s. This is the Sharp Hunter cheese.
This is very sharp. It's very nice.
Good cheese. The shop itself is relatively small, but they still make the cheese here, and there's a museum upstairs that talks all about the history. Plus, they have cheese samples here, and that's hard to beat as well.
Wow, that was a good stop. Be sure to get the truffle cheese. That's my personal favorite. This house right in front of me is where President Coolidge was woken up in the middle of the night and sworn in as the president.
Apparently his father was against modernizing the house, so it's basically in the same condition that it was when he was sworn in as president. It wasn't open for us to visit, but if you're interested in this history, this is definitely a stop for you.
That was an awesome little stop. The preserved historic town is so cool. Good cheese factory, good pictures, the fall colors. I mean, can't beat it.
After leaving this area, we continued driving north on Route 100. The fall colors were spectacular here, so we kept pulling off the road anytime we saw some reflections that we could take some pictures of. Also, the Gypsy Guide was great as it told us more history about Calvin Coolidge and the area we were driving through. It's not sponsored or anything, but we did really enjoy using that guide on our trip. About 15 minutes later, we took Route 4 east as there was a stop I really wanted to see along that, and then we stumbled on a covered bridge.
I didn't even know that this was here, and we just saw it on the side of the road. This is the Lincoln Covered Bridge.
I never got tired of seeing these bridges along the drive, and I'd love to go back and see even more of them on another trip. Our next stop brought us to a well-known and favorite spot for people to take fall color photos.
We're here at Sleepy Hollow Farm, which is one of the most popular places to take photos in New England for fall colors, so we'll see how busy it is.
Prior to this stop, the only time we had really been around other people was at the Vermont Country Store. At Sleepy Hollow Farm though, and at Stowe later in the day, these are two of the places that everybody goes to when they come to New England. Of course, they're both amazing stops, but it was a lot more fun the rest of the day when we were just driving by ourselves and seeing all the fall colors around us. This is a beautiful spot, and I was glad to finally see it for myself. Also, random note, it used to be owned by Aerosmith guitarist Joe Perry.
So my review, that's a stunning spot, well worth taking some pictures of, but it's a zoo, crazy amount of people here, and we've seen some amazing stuff already on this trip that if you don't want to go there, you don't have to.
There was even a policeman patrolling the area to stop people walking down from the farm and to give tickets when people parked in the wrong area. We took the long way back to Route 100, just going slow and enjoying the beautiful fall foliage.
Just another random pullout on our drive.
I don't even know where this spot was, but when we saw the river and the bridge out in the distance, we knew we had to stop for a little bit. From here, we got on the highway and drove towards Stowe, which we knew was going to be a busy spot. As you get off on Route 100 here, you'll be at the headquarters for Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream.
Unfortunately, Ben & Jerry's is closed on Mondays, so here's the Ben & Jerry's factory, but we can't have any. Be sure to have one for us and let us know how it is in the comments. So even though Ben & Jerry's is closed, we still get to go to the Flavor Graveyard.
They have over 30 flavors that are quote-unquote buried here, and each one of them has some hilarious words on their headstone. As we walked around, I found many different flavors I'd never even heard of, and apparently you can go online and request to resurrect some of these flavors if there are ones that you like.
I actually used to get the oatmeal cookie crunch one. I didn't even know that it was dead, but apparently it's dead, so now I have to mourn for it.
There's also an awesome kids playground here, and I was pretty bummed that I didn't get to see the actual factory. As we made our way towards Stowe, we stopped at the Cold Hollow Cider Mill. This place was packed with people all waiting in line to try the cider and the donuts. You know me, I'm never one to pass up donuts or cider, I guess, either.
All right, Pop's got his hot apple cider.
We'll see here. It's very good.
Tastes like apple cider.
Tastes like apple cider.
I don't drink a lot of apple cider. I would say it's very sweet, but I like it. And then we have this, which is the apple cider donut that they said is legendary and that they're known for. Not the best donut I've ever had.
Kind of plain.
I feel like it needs like sugar or something on it. It's not bad.
Kind of bland.
I will say that it was $5 for 2 ciders and 1 donut, and that's pretty hard to beat prices. We're heading on to Stowe.
We were here on a weekday in the middle of October, and it was incredibly hard to get a parking spot at Cold Hollow Cider. Plus, there was like 15 minutes of traffic just to drive into downtown Stowe. We decided to go past the downtown area and just go to a viewpoint for the famous church. Honestly, this was a way better viewpoint than trying to find a place to park in the downtown area, as you got that iconic church with the fall colors behind it.
Pops is setting up for what I think is going to be an epic time lapse. I will play it right here.
I love the way you could see the clouds and the shadows moving across the ground. From there, we said goodbye to Stowe and headed to a well-loved brewery called The Alchemist.
Hey guys, look! It's your favorite part of every video when Pop sticks his head in something. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. So if you guys like beer and you're in the Stowe area, this is Alchemist Brewery. They have an IPA here called Heady Topper, which is always voted one of the best in the United States. I've never had it before, but I'm excited to give it a try.
They do offer tours of the property if you're interested, but when we were there, they were just doing to-go orders, so we grabbed some beers to take with us. They don't really ship anywhere, and if they do, it gets bought up quickly, so if you're in the Stowe area, be sure to stop by.
I got a $10 hat without ever trying the beer, so hopefully it's good. We're gonna try some later tonight. We're heading to one more stop before we end the day. This is our last stop of the day, the Von Trapp Family Lodge. Look at this, you can really see the way that the fall colors change. It's all green in the back, and then there's some like orange and yellow, and then it's coming red on the outside. It's pretty cool to see it like that.
If you want to explore and do some hiking here, you have to check in with the Wilderness Center right near the parking lot and pay a small fee. The Von Trapp family used to entertain lots of guests here, and so they decided to build this lodge. It sits on 2,500 acres, and it's a great spot to spend the weekend in the summer for some hiking or even in the winter for some cross-country skiing.
Something he really wants to show you in the field of the Von Trapp family. No? Not the hills are alive with the sound of music?
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
Woo!
They have sung for 1,000 years.
Man, leave a like for that, right?
Stop. I wasn't finished. I'm sure all of the trails here are beautiful, but I saw pictures of this chapel nestled in the hills with the trees all around it, so we're just gonna do that one.
It takes about 20 minutes to hike up to the chapel, and it's uphill the whole way.
Climb every mountain.
Is that another Sound of Music reference?
Every stream. Follow every rainbow.
So you can see the trail is all red because the red falls off first. And so we have green and yellow and some red still up there. But it's pretty cool that you're walking along and it's all red, orange leaves. FYI, this trail is a little bit steep. Took us about 15 minutes to get to the chapel, which is right there though.
The stone chapel here was built in the 1940s, and it's beautiful to see surrounded by the fall foliage.
Something else you can do while you're here is you can ring the bell. Pops also helped us realize that you can go inside of the chapel.
Lots of people have left things behind, pictures and candles and other things. It kind of feels like an actual church altar.
Oh, I didn't even realize there was the windows up that were open too. We haven't explored enough yet, apparently.
That's right, that's right.
Really cool though. That's it for day 2 on our Fall Colors road trip. We got about an hour and 15-minute drive back to where we're staying for the night. We will see you tomorrow. I can confirm this beer is very good. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. Today is day 3 of our Fall Colors road trip. We're driving the Kancamagus Highway, also known as the Kank.
This is the 5th state we're in, New Hampshire.
We stayed about 30 minutes from the highway and we got an early start as this is one of the most visited areas for fall color road trips. It was a cold and cloudy morning, but we were able to find another covered bridge on the way. This is the Swiftwater Covered Bridge and it was built in 1849. What made it especially cool was a small waterfall that was right near the base of the bridge. Plus, we had it all to ourselves as no one else wanted to be up this early in the morning. As we continued on, we stumbled on an incredible early morning view.
Alright, you guys ready? I think this might be the most beautiful view we have seen on the drive. Wow! Epic reflection, some fog. Oh my gosh.
After looking it up on Google Maps, this area was called the Beaver Pond. There was only 1 or 2 other cars with us the entire time we were there. This time lapse shows how beautiful it was with the smoke moving over the water and the clouds in the sky. Continuing on, we made it to the town of Lincoln. This is the official start of the Kancamagus Highway and it goes 34 miles from here to the town of Conway. You'll see lots of driving shots in this part of the video as the drive was just incredible. There were so many yellows, oranges, and reds along the drive and it's an easy bucket list place to visit.
We made it to our first stop, the Lincoln Woods Trailhead area. I just wanted to see the suspension bridge. There's some longer hikes here, but we're not going to do them today.
This suspension bridge was a great introduction to the Kank.
Well, that's pretty epic. Look at those colors, the river. Good start to our day.
Even in the shadowed early morning light, every direction you looked was amazing. Seeing the water flowing right below you with the yellows and reds is just something I'll never forget.
It is freezing cold, but that was so cool.
As we say on most of our road trips, this one especially is just about the journey. All along the way you'll see beautiful fall colors and there's multiple different overlooks you can enjoy them from.
This is Panorama Point and it is epic.
I can't stress this enough to get an early start if you want to do this drive. As we were driving through here around 8:30, we basically had no problems getting parking, but when we came back here later in the day, all of the parking lots were full.
And see how cold it is, we still got some frost on the ground.
Also, while I found the overlooks to be amazing, to me the best part was just the drive.
Basically, this drive for us is stopping at the different overlooks, so it's not super long. It depends on how long you want to spend at each of the places, and there's a couple little short hikes that we're going to do. Overall, not a really long drive. What do you think of the Kancamagus Highway so far?
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and as you can see, it's like this valley. So in the valley is where all the colors are.
As we pulled up to the next overlook, we ran into the first of many tour buses we would see throughout the day. I heard a lot of people complaining about the tour buses, but honestly it seemed like a great thing as it kept more of the cars off the road and allowed more people to experience the beautiful area.
Look at all of the amazing colors along this side of the road. This is what we've been driving next to half the time we've been on the highway. We made it to the end of the highway. We had to skip some of that second half because we're trying to get Acadia National Park sunrise passes. They go out in about 3 minutes, and so we had to get to reception real quick. But we were already planning on driving it again, so we're gonna go back in and do all the stuff we missed on the first round. I got my permit, Acadia sunrise, and Pop's got, sorry, you could not complete this request.
I was 10 seconds later.
So yeah, this is a tough one to get, but we should be seeing sunrise in Acadia National Park. We are heading back into the highway and we're gonna do all of the second half stuff, including one short hike and a couple waterfalls. Since the road is so short, we had already planned on driving it both ways to see as much as we could. This is the starting point of the highway from the east side. Looks like there maybe was a sign at some point. Not anymore. If you want to learn more about how the highway was built and how it got its name, pause the video right here and you can read this plaque. We were just driving and Pop scoped us this pretty epic reflection with all that red. Every once in a while I find a reason to bring him on these trips.
Right. Besides the comic relief.
Yeah. This is just an example of what you can see along the side of the road on this drive. There are lots of designated pullouts that are popular, but there's also pullouts like this where there's no other people and you get to have the views to yourself. This is the Albany Covered Bridge, which is our first stop as we're heading west back through the highway. Also, there's a lot more people here. It's about 10:30, so we'll see how parking is the rest of the drive. As we started to head back at 10:30, that's when we really started to notice all the people. By the time we got back to the other side around noon, it was packed everywhere. The bridge here was built in 1858, but it has been updated and reinforced since then. It's one of the best examples of a covered bridge that you can see, and it's easy to get up close to it as there's not very much car traffic going through. There's also a nice walking path on both sides of the bridge to let you get close to the water and get better views. That was our 6th covered bridge I think we've seen on this trip. I think that was one of the best ones. I liked the way that it had that red top.
Yeah, that was different.
Pop says no comment.
Huh?
Our next stop is the short walk to Lower Falls. Lower Falls is a great family-friendly area to stop as there's lots of rocks to play on and it's a short path to get down to the water. The waterfall here is more of a cascade and it's pretty tiny, but it's still a beautiful area to see, especially in the fall. There's a little elevated platform that you can walk out on to get the best views of the falls. Not a ton of water and a pretty tiny waterfall, but the fall colors make every stop a great stop. Even with the amount of stuff we're doing in this road trip video, there's still a ton of things left on the highway that we didn't even get to see. You could easily spend a couple days driving this highway in the surrounding areas and doing lots of the hikes. This Rocky Gorge area is really pretty stop. You can get down close to the water and then there's some good fall colors and you can just walk a little path along the water too. Rocky Gorge is another popular spot where you may have trouble finding parking, but once you get it, the walk down to the bridge and the little waterfall is awesome. This is a way cooler spot than Lower Falls was.
Way cooler. Very red, kind of sharp edges and whatever. Yeah.
There was a sign here that said that this area has been popular since the Civil War and that people would take a 3-day journey from Boston to get here to visit. I guess if you're coming from Boston, this would be a pretty magical place to explore, but 3 days is a long time. This is our second to last stop going west. We're seeing an old barn and a cabin. We are here, there's a barn, a cemetery, and a homestead. Also, in case anybody was interested in droning, there's no drone signs at basically every stop along this highway. I was hoping to fly my drone on the highway as you always see the popular spot of the crazy bend they have in the road here, but unfortunately drones are not allowed on the entire area. Because of that, I left my drone in the car the entire time I was on the Kank. The houses and barn here are part of the Russell Colbath homestead. The barn has been completely rebuilt, so it's not old, but the house was from 1832. They do have tours here occasionally, but it wasn't open when we went. You could still peek your head in the windows and walk around the grounds.
It's crazy. This house is from 1832, so almost 200 years old.
Now we're heading to a popular waterfall hike, and I don't know if there's going to be any parking, but maybe we'll get lucky. Our last stop on the drive brought us to the parking area for Sabaday Falls, and luckily there was one spot left when we got there. It really felt like a fall wonderland here, with yellows and reds all around us and leaves even covering the ground.
The hike here is around a mile round trip with not too much elevation, and it should be good for most people.
I love seeing all the red, like the fiery red color.
The trail follows a beautiful meandering creek as it makes its way up to the waterfall.
This is definitely one not to miss. It's probably the prettiest trail we've been on today.
Eventually you'll reach a small pool with some slippery rocks you can climb around and see the lower falls up close. From there you'll just go back to the stairs to continue on to the upper falls.
Super cool little gorge that the lower part goes through, but there's an upper part as well.
The upper part of the falls has about a 35-foot drop with a wooden bridge that goes right alongside of it. It's awesome for photos, and it was a really impressive waterfall with a good amount of flow when we were there. This entire hike was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
That was easily a highlight for me. A two-tier waterfall with a little gorge was just epic, and then the walk here with all the fall colors was amazing as well. We're gonna finish out the highway, get something to eat, and then do another part of the area to see the fall there.
For the rest of the drive to the town of Lincoln, we didn't stop at all. We just drove slowly along the road, taking in all the fall colors and looking at how busy everything had become. This was around 12:30, and I would say if you're doing it at this time on a weekday, you're gonna have a lot of trouble finding parking. The good thing for us is that most of the traffic was heading east, so since we were heading west, it wasn't too bad to drive. On the way back into Lincoln, we tried to find something to eat, but everything was super busy with at least an hour wait with all the tourists like us who were visiting.
Check out where we are. McDonald's for breakfast and for lunch today. Basically every restaurant is either closed or has an hour wait, so we'd rather hike than wait, and we're gonna get McDonald's. Deluxe crispy chicken sandwich and a Big Mac for Pops with an orange soda. It's his favorite.
High C orange.
They're different.
They are.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Cheers.
From McDonald's, we headed about 15 minutes north to our next attraction, the Flume Gorge. Like everything else, this is incredibly busy, and be sure to reserve your time online in advance so that you can make sure you get a ticket. When I was researching this trip, I saw photos of the gorge and knew I had to see it for myself. The hike here is about 2 miles round trip with some ups and downs that you have to do along the way. Luckily, there are multiple points of interest that you can see as you're hiking, and the first is a covered bridge. The covered bridge over the river here was first built in 1886. The trail is very easy to follow as there's a lot of people that will be walking in the same direction, and there are many signs along the way. The next spot you'll see is Table Rock, which is a large granite rock that the water cascades over for a good 1/10 of a mile.
I've seen pictures of this place online. I've always wanted to see it, but I think today probably is not gonna be the best. There's so many people here, but we're still gonna see it, so it should be cool.
As you approach the top of Table Rock, you'll be at the entrance for the Flume. As you enter the Flume Gorge, the trail gets a lot more narrow, with some sections barely big enough for 2 people to pass each other.
We're approaching the traffic jam.
Luckily, there are many spots where you can stop and take a picture and people can pass you. We took our time in this section, and while we were never alone, we were passed by lots of people and were able to experience the area. While I certainly wish it would have been a little bit less busy, this place is still incredibly cool. The trail is basically built into the side of the rock, and as you go up, you'll be climbing wooden stairs that let you climb over waterfalls as you make your way through the gorge.
You even got some leaves falling down. I know, we got leaves falling down in the picture. Beautiful.
You're walking through this section of the gorge for probably about a 1/4 of a mile, and it just keeps getting better as you continue on.
This place is unreal.
At the very end, you'll reach the last and the biggest of the waterfalls, known as Avalanche Falls. The trail climbs up and goes around this waterfall, giving you great views from all angles.
After exiting the gorge, Pops, what do you think?
So unique, the sheer walls, the rushing waterfalls, one after another that have cut this out, and then the beautiful way they've made the trail. It's really well done, really beautiful spot.
I'm not gonna tell you this place isn't busy, and it does cost to get in. That being said, even with all the people who are here, it was a pretty incredible experience. Now we're heading back to the car.
To get back to the car from here, it's probably about 1.25 miles. Luckily, there are a few more stops to see along the way. The first being the small waterfall at the Liberty Gorge.
This is the Liberty Gorge rain hut in case it's raining on you when you're hiking here. No rain for us, luckily.
We made our way past the Liberty Cascade to what is known as the pool. The pool is some deep water right at the bottom of a small canyon, and you'll actually have to cross a covered bridge in order to get to the other side.
Sentinel Pine Bridge, 1939.
This bridge was really cool to see, and it was an awesome little addition to the hike, especially for children.
The Wolf's Den, a narrow path that involves crawling, squeezing in between rocks and crawling on your hands and knees.
Michael Peck.
Pops climbed through the Wolf's Den, but there's no footage to show that it happened. Obviously, he did not climb through the Wolf's Den.
Eventually, we made it back to the parking lot and started our drive to our last stop of the day. I wish I had more time in this area, as there was a lot more hikes I wanted to do, and this part, which is known as the Franconian Notch, looked like it would be an amazing place to spend an entire day exploring. For us though, we headed towards the Cog Railway Station to go up to the top of Mount Washington. As you approach, Mount Washington is a commanding presence in front of you. This is the tallest mountain in New Hampshire and the tallest mountain in all of New England.
This is the last thing we're doing on our New England Fall Colors road trip. We are taking the Cog Railway all the way to the summit of Mount Washington, which is the tallest mountain in New England.
I will say this is a pricey attraction at around $85 a ticket for my dad and I. Also, you need to book your tickets in advance as they're likely to sell out. What's really cool about this is that it opened in 1868 and it's actually the first mountain climbing cog railway in the world. Be sure to get there early so you can see the other train coming down before you have to load into yours. If you have time to kill before your train leaves, there's a small museum which tells you about the history, and there's a store where you can purchase food and drinks.
Don't say I never did anything for you.
I don't need hairworms, I got gloves.
That go in the gloves.
Oh, they go under gloves?
The lady inside told me it was 16 degrees with the wind chill at the summit. Platform A. We are about to board for our cold adventure.
If you decide to do this, come prepared as it can be incredibly windy and cold at the top. Also, you have assigned seating, so you have to pick those in advance, and the entire experience takes around 3 hours. While the track itself is only 3 miles in length, it has an average grade of 25% and you only go about 2.8 miles an hour. It's crazy how much you feel the grade as you're riding the train, and even standing up can be difficult when it's going. They let you roll the windows down if you want, and you can take pictures outside of the windows, which give you some great views. Also, the entire way up, the conductor is telling you stories and history about the area and about the cog railway itself. One of the most interesting parts was right around the halfway point where we had to stop and allow the trains coming down to pass us. It was crazy to be able to see how they were maintaining their speed on the steep downhill. While most of the time we had to take pictures from our own benches, the conductor did let people come up every once in a while and take pictures from the front of the train. As you continue up, the views behind you are crazy, and the train gains about 3,500 feet of elevation in its 3-mile track.
This is so...
As we made our way to the top, the ground was covered in snow and it was much colder than I even envisioned it could be. Plus, the buildings at the top looked to me like something you would see in a James Bond villain's lair.
Pops and I are on the summit of Mount Washington. If you can even hear me in the wind and cold. Well, the official summit is right there. Woo! Made it to the highest point in New England. Woo!
This is one of those places where you just wanted to explore the summit, walk around, and take in all the views, but it was so cold and windy that it stopped you from really doing that. They give you about 45 minutes up here to explore before you have to get back on the train and go back down.
It's so windy. It's like 15 degrees.
Also, because of its location, the highest ever recorded wind in the world, 231 miles an hour, was recorded up here on the summit. If you don't want to take the train, you can actually drive all the way to the top, or of course you can hike here as well. After exploring outside for as long as we possibly could, we headed into the summit building to wait for the train to come back up. Inside the summit building, there's information on the Mount Washington summit, which is over 6,000 feet tall. There's also a small store, cafe, and museum, but all of that was closed since we were the last train up for the day.
Mount Washington has the worst weather in the world. We experienced a teeny bit of it today.
If you're hiking it, note that this is one of the most dangerous mountains in the United States just because of how quickly the weather can turn on you. Eventually, we saw our train crest the hill and start making its way up to the summit. They warned us multiple times to be sure to get in when it came up, or else we were going to have to walk all the way back down in the dark.
Heading back down from the summit. 2 thumbs up, Pops?
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. Beautiful place to be up here. Very different. Really fun.
I'm gonna get to watch the sunset on the way down.
I booked a ticket for the last row on the way up, but because they turned the seats, it was the front row on the way down. They didn't allow you to stand up and walk around on the way down, so I had the best view the entire way of the sunset. This is 100% the way to do it, and I can't even tell you how amazing it was to see the sunset as we were going down from Mount Washington. Plus, it took about 45 minutes to an hour, so you just got to enjoy it the entire way down. It is a little nerve-wracking looking at the track as you make your way down, but overall it was a great experience and we got down in one piece. From there, we made the 45-minute drive back to North Conway and checked in our hotel to end our trip.
Finally back to our hotel after doing the Cog Railway, which was an excellent experience. Tomorrow we head to Acadia National Park, which you can see up here when it gets posted.
Thank you so much for traveling with us, and we will see you on the next video.
This isn't the end of our time in New England, and if you want to watch more videos, we have one on Salem in October, the Freedom Trail in Boston, and Acadia National Park. If you made it all the way to the end, let me know what you thought and let me know which road trip you'd want to see us do next. We'll see you on the next video.